Hi there, welcome back to Decorating Happily Ever After. I'm Jeffrey Kevin. Today, I've laid the table for tea. Tea for a Queen, in honor of the late Queen Elizabeth of England. Like most people around the world and in England, I was shocked last week to hear of her death. For this regal tea tablescape, I'm using my Old Country Roses by Royal Albert, a color scheme of rich gold and scarlet, and fresh hydrangeas from the garden. So let's take a look around the table. For today's tea tablescape, I'm using a richly patterned gold damask tablecloth, and I've overlaid it with an elegant crushed gray velvet throw that's trimmed in a beautiful gold fringe. I've been wanting to use this table scarf for a while now, but I just didn't have a formal occasion for it. It's not quite large enough to be a tablecloth, but I've used it here as a scarf on the center of the table. For this occasion, of course, I have to use British china, and one of my favorite patterns of the china that I own that's made in England is Royal Albert Old Country Roses. The colors are so vivid, and with all the gilt on the edge, it's always been one of my favorites. I've got the dessert plate, and I'm going to use the cup and saucers. Unfortunately, my flatware does not have tea knives and tea forks. So for today, I'm just going to be using the teaspoon. I'm using gold damask napkins with gilt fern frond napkin rings. For my centerpiece today, I've used some autumn colored hydrangeas. Some of you may think they're a little far gone, but I really enjoy the shades that they turn. I've got two varieties in this bouquet. They're both pinnacle hydrangeas. The gold hydrangeas started off white, and now they've turned to a gold, and they'll be even a deeper shade soon. Those are Phantom, and the dusty pink are Pinkachou. They start off sort of a limey green, and then they'll turn to the dusty pink, and they'll get even a little darker, almost a burgundy shade. The bouquet is made in the Old Country Roses champagne cooler. And here I've got a lovely picture of Queen Elizabeth. She's all decked out in her royal regalia, and I've placed it on a pretty easel. And at the other side, I've got one of my coffee table books. This one is by photographer Cecil Beaton, The Royal Portraits. And Queen Elizabeth is sitting with her children. This has some beautiful photography of the royal family. And I've also placed it on a pretty gilded easel. And at each side I have these lovely candelabras. I've put gold candles in them. And believe it or not, guys, they came from a thrift store. We're talking about Queen Elizabeth today, and I'm mentioning thrift stores, but Mother called me and told me that there was a really pretty pair of, at the time she called them candle holders, and trying to describe them, she told me they match the ones that go with our clock sets. And I said, oh yes, I definitely want them. And so they were quite a find. I'll show you here on this side of the room. There's one of the clock sets that we have, and it has the center clock with the candelabras. But she told me, she said, there's no clock, but these favor those. So I said, oh yes, put those in your buggy. And also I have a pretty little teacup Gosh, I bought this probably 20 years ago or more at an antique shop. It has the Queen and the Prince on it. I think it's commemorating a trip to Canada in, I believe, 1958, if I remember correctly. It's on the bottom. And I've got a pretty velvet crown here with little jewels that I've placed on a pedestal. At this end of the table, I have my Old Country Roses teapot. And being an American, tea is second nature to me, especially hot tea, because I'm from the South. Iced tea reigns here. But when it comes to coffee, I'm familiar, so I also placed my coffee pot too. And I have them both on a pretty gold tray. And here, sitting on the scarf, I've got this pretty little candy dish. It's also the Royal Albert Old Country Roses. And at this corner of the table, I have the sugar and the creamer. Here I've got a Biscuit Tin. It's Big Ben. I think I got that, of all places, at TJ Maxx several years ago, and it had, well, what we would call cookies. The British would say biscuits. And I've also brought some of my tea and biscuit tins to the table. I have a collection of vintage ones. I have my tidbit tray out. And another little long platter in the Old Country Roses. Here's another tea tin. And of course, you guys know I usually have a silent butler on the table. And this one has a pretty gilt design, a floral gilt design. And that's used to dust your crumbs. I'm sure somewhere in Buckingham Palace the Queen surely had one. Or her butler did. And here I've got another tea tin. This is a little vintage biscuit tin. I think it's such a pretty pattern. It still has this little paper liner inside. This piece was so regal, I just had to bring it to the table with all its gilt and allegorical figures. It's sort of a swan neck compote. I'll give you a view of the inside. It's too pretty to put flowers in. You would cover all that up. This is a recent acquisition. I actually saw it, of all places, on Twitter. The dealer was showing it and went to eBay and purchased it. I thought it was so pretty, I just had to have that. Of course, everything, guys, reminds me of something else, and this lovely table set for tea makes me think of when my niece was a little girl. She liked to have tea parties with her dad, and my brother would ask her, "Would you like a spot of tea?" And he's a big guy, 6'4", and the thought of him in a terrible British accent asking my niece, would she like a spot of tea, still makes me laugh. I've also put a vintage scepter here on the table. I suppose this is probably from a beauty pageant, but it would have probably been around the turn of the century because it's quite old. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a comment below. Give this video a thumbs up. Be sure and subscribe to my channel, Decorating Happily Ever After, and turn on the notifications bell so you never miss a video. I'm Jeffrey Kevin, wishing you a spot of tea. Bye-bye now.